Okay, so how y'all doing tonight? I'm kind of doing this tutorial on somewhat short notice, but yeah, if you want to know what this game is, this is Cybernator. The version I'm playing, though, is the Japanese version, so it went under a different title. And this tutorial is really only covering a small aspect of the run. You don't really truly need a tutorial for most of this run. Like, you honestly could learn just from watching a run. Aside from the last stage. That maybe one day I'll do that sort of tutorial for that last stage, because that is a pretty important stage to cover. But for the purpose of this video, we're going to talk about a pretty important part, an integral part of the run that is a little more difficult to pin down the how to do properly, and that is the art of text mashing. And there are a number of ways you can do it, and we're only going to highlight the way I do it. Other runners have done it a different way, roll through the thumb, and, use their index and middle fingers to kind of do the piano key effects and whatnot. I don't find those like super efficient for one reason or another. But I guess before I talk about my method here, we'll go into, just what is needed to actually mash the text here. And we'll try and be quick about this. But basically, all four of these buttons here serve as a button to mash. Here's proof of B, I was gonna cover Y there, but then I ran out of text. Alright, so here comes our next text box here. Here's Y. Here's X. Here's A. And there you go. So that's kind of how you mash through text. All four of these buttons here, the Y, the X, the A, and the B, all of them serve as actual buttons you can mash with. So of course, in the speed run, you want to take advantage of this, obviously. But I've already talked about some of the actual methods that, one would think to use, like the thumb rolling across the four buttons, which is effective. You don't have to really move your controller. The piano finger thing, you can see, you kind of have to like bend the thing around or something like that. You really have to put your hand, way out of the comfort zone of how you held the controller beforehand. However, my method kind of is how it kind of takes all the somewhat difficult aspects of those other methods, and I feel strikes the balance to get exactly the effect that I want for the text smash, while not really sacrificing my actual movement going forward with the actual run itself. So, I guess now comes the time to explain just what I do. So I'm holding the controller like so. This is how anyone's going to hold a controller, like, unless you're disabled or something like that. But how I do my mash is I go from the standard and I slide my directional D-pad hand and I slide it over. And I make sure the thumb of that thumb that was in charge of the D-pad to slide directly over the Y and the B button, like so. Then I take my other hand and I nestle it on top of the A and the X button. Basically, what we'll call this is the thumb highway. You got one thumb going one way, one thumb going the other way. Thumb highway. Now, here's the part that I think needs to be explained pretty thoroughly, and that is how you actually rest your thumbs. You do not want to hold the base, the most pointed end directly on a button. You do not want to hold these buttons down firmly. You want to just rest your thumbs on them. Just gently. And that is so that you can effectively use all 4 of these buttons as a button to mash. Because if you're firmly holding down even one of these buttons, you're not going to get the optimal mash with this method. Now that probably sounds kind of scary, because now you're probably thinking, well, if I don't hold it down firmly, I'm probably going to lose control of the controller. It's just going to slide off my hand, and I'm going to drop my controller or something, and, well, that doesn't sound very good. Well, there's another reason why this manner of holding down the controller, or holding this controller, is effective even on that note. And you probably can't even see it, but I'm already holding it in such a way that I've got the controller. I'm basically holding the controller in such a way that you don't have to worry about it falling down. And if you can't see it, that's fine. In fact, the shadowing, I think, even is disguising it. But if you can't see it, here's my index finger, there's my middle finger. What's between them? The wire. So basically, when I go from my standard, I'm sliding my hand across here quickly, but not only am I while I'm trying to get my thumb positioned across the Y and the B button, I am also taking that opportunity to quickly get my index finger and my middle finger and snag the wire between it to hold the controller stable. This is very, very important. By doing this, you can see that the controller is not going to go anywhere. You have, just by throwing that wire sticking out of this controller, just by doing that, you have now made it so that the controller, you don't have to fear the controller going anywhere. It's real nice. So, now that I've mentioned about how to keep the controller stable, I should probably mention that is the defined role of this hand in particular, your left hand. This is my left hand, by the way, which means we must now talk about the importance of our right hand here. So, when we get in position to do our mash here, the right hand now carries the very important role of jostling the controller like that. The left hand is to keep the controller stable. The right hand is meant to get the mash going like that. And you don't even really have to move this thumb really all that much at all. You don't have to even move it at all. As long as this thumb here on your left hand is comfortably just resting on top of the 2 buttons, just gently, not firmly, but gently, you're going to find that very often it's going to just do the mashing for those 2 buttons on its own, because with your right hand, you're already pushing the controller up. When you're doing this, you're pushing the controller up, and you're already making that thumb do the work for you just by utilizing the hand. You're kind of basically doing a seesaw effect, and with the middle point being the wire that you're trying to utilize here to hold the controller stable. Kind of like so. Like you can see, I'm going up and down here. I'm kind of going up and down like so. I'm trying to get it angled so that it can be better described, but yeah. I'm basically just doing this repetitive motion here. And you speed it up, it literally looks exactly the same, just sped up. And that's basically how you do the mash. So, like I said, again, the right hand is meant to be the workhorse, while the left hand is meant to be the stabilizer. And that's kind of how you do the mash with this method. So let's go through this one more time carefully. You go from stationary position here. You slide the left hand over with the thumb going over Y and B, and make sure the middle and the index finger are between the wire to hold the controller stable. And while you're doing this, make sure that you get your right hand here set up and nestled over A and X button. Make sure your thumbs, before I do that, make sure that making sure that you establish the thumb highway position here covering all 4 of the buttons, and make sure the thumbs are resting gently on top of the buttons. Do not hold down any of these buttons. And then when you're ready, when the text is about to show up, get ready to put a lot of work into your right hand and just mash quickly and just like a fast seesaw going up and down up the controller, and literally you don't have to do much of any work beyond just holding stable with your left hand. Just make sure your thumb is on top of the Y and B button. And that's basically it. It will take practice, for sure. But that's how you basically do it. So now, let's take what we have learned. I'm gonna do the first stage here, just to see how how rusty I am at doing this. And hopefully we get a good optimal mash out of it. Yeah, you see how fast it goes there. I mean, obviously the other methods are relatively fast. You don't lose too much time doing the other methods, but it's actually quite convenient. But you go through you go through text really fast, and you don't sacrifice your basic position, or you don't compromise your basic hand positioning initially to swap to holding the controller that way either. So that's kind of all there is to the text mashing with this level, and that's basically all there is to the text mash.